Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Hey, we're back in the studio. You're listening to this edition of the business side of music. In the studio today with us, someone had the distinct pleasure and opportunity of meeting a few weeks back at a Dinner with Dreamers episode, or maybe I should say a Dinner with Dreamers event here in Nashville. It's kind of a weekly or bi-weekly or monthly event where a lot of creative people get together, as we like to call them, creatives. And we had the opportunity to sit at the same table with Elizabeth Motley, who is a seasoned, award-winning creative television executive and former TV news anchor. You've got more than 15 years experience in the business. You've worked with a lot of great people, which we're going to talk about here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So my first question is, you've pretty much been in television, I guess, most of your life, some film, but mostly television?
Mostly television.
How'd you get started?
I was going to go to film school and took a left turn into TV and kind of ended up there for 15 years.
That's definitely a left turn that you stayed in for a while. You've done just about everything. When I look at your bio, it's a rather lengthy one, which is good because that speaks volumes in itself. I mean, you've done everything from television shows like Romper Room to ESPN Sports and I guess both the Democratic and the Republican national conventions. Is there anything you haven't done yet that you wish you had?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything, but I guess I get bored easily. I like a new challenge. I worked in local TV and then got into national television, and then someone offered me a job in Washington, D.C., working in politics. I knew nothing about politics, but you
That's
learn
okay.
fast.
They don't know anything about
they
politics.
don't either.
There, so.
And medical programming, health programming, worked at Universal Studios in Orlando. And after D.C., ended up working international television at a cruise line down in Miami, and I created content in 6 languages and licensed the content. And I had to learn international TV. I thought it would be an easy job to put my feet up.
And this is something you didn't know about previously.
No. I always figure I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I feel like I can generally figure anything out. I have a strong skill set, and I want to do something, and I want to be the best at it.
That seems to be, for the most part, the common denominator that we find with a lot of people that come on the show is they just discover something by chance and they get in it and kind of that say yes till you say no and figure it out as you go along.
That's true. That's true. And it is interesting how maybe as creative people, we want to learn something new or see something in a different way or be innovative about it, or we don't have a preconceived notion about it. So we're sort of like, okay, let me sort this out. Figure it out with my skill set.
But that's not where you wound up, because at the end result, with all your years in television, you actually wound up working in the world of public relations.
Yes, and did that by accident. It's kind of an interesting story. I was working in Miami, and I was working in international TV with a cruise line. I'd gotten to be friends with some celebrity headline performers that performed for the guests. And after about 6 months or so, it was the Nelson twins, Matthew and Gunnar Nelson, and they performed a lot for Royal Caribbean International. Is
that how you found him? You connected through the cruise line, or?
Yeah, we met on board the Enchantment of the Seas out of New Jersey, of all places. Gunnar Nelson at the time was on a hit TV show on VH1, And he had hired a lady out of LA, out of a very prestigious PR firm, and spent thousands of dollars, and she had not booked anything for him. He turned to me and just basically said, "Can you help me out?" And I thought it was a little odd, considering they had a lot going on, sons of Ricky Nelson, grandsons of Ozzie and Harriet, and being on a hit TV show. So my thinking was, yeah, I'll help out. Let me give it a shot. So started doing it sort of in the beginning, and then it became a regular thing, and I worked with them for about 10 years, started doing advanced tour publicity. I felt like I got very strong, after 6 months or so, just knowing market by market. And now I have a lot of tools that help me for any artist, whether it's someone just starting out or a celebrity headliner. But I have proprietary software, and I have a big database, and I have a ton of contacts and relationships. But having been in the media, I sort of felt like I had the inside leverage to know how to pitch it, and I also knew what not to do.
And when we talk about publicity, public relations, which kind of are, I think, two different things within themselves, it's something that every entertainer really needs to have in their back pocket anyway. Don't you agree?
I do agree. I think you always want to have the buzz about you and your career and your song, and it's a process, and it's not flipping a switch. You don't just turn a switch on and, oh, here's a bunch of PR. You have to continually chip away at it and work at it. And whether or not you have somebody on your team to help you with it, you just have to get your name out there. You have to get people listening to your music, talking about yourself, talking about your songwriting, or whatever your project is, really.
And that's tougher these days, I think, than it's ever been.
It really is. With all the media companies consolidating, there's a handful of people that are doing, all the writing and editing. It used to be the database was so big. There were so many publications. There were, look at all the newspapers that have gone out of business.
Right. And when you say publications, you're not talking just digital, you're talking print also.
Yeah, there's print, there's digital, all the online webzines. But a lot of artists, they want to end up on the cover of, a 3-color, nice glossy magazine. It looks good for their press kit.
Right. But that's not easy.
No, it's not easy.
And you really have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
When you take on a new client, is there something that you're looking for? Is there something that you need to see out of them? I mean, because let's face it, if you take a new artist on who's kind of really fresh behind the ears, or maybe I should say wet behind the ears, there's not a lot to work with there, right?
No, they have a lot to learn. And they're not just learning about the media business, they're learning the music industry, they're learning how to get their songs played. Promotion's a whole nother area. That's just not getting their name out there. But what I look for, every one of my clients, I feel very blessed because every one of my clients has been referred to me. And I've been, I feel very strongly about that. But I always meet with somebody, and I like to listen to their work and know that they're very good at what they do. But I also like to understand where they're coming from. Is this something that they're very passionate about? Are they willing to put in and do what it takes? It's not just, a little hobby. I just really feel strongly that they have to be dedicated and passionate as well as talented.
Is there some place that you always typically start with an artist? I'm not saying it's a cookie cutter template, but is there a formula, or is each client different?
I think each client is unique. Each client is different. I interview them and talk to them once I take them on as a client, but I also have a sort of like a survey and questions that I ask them to answer and think about. And I find out what makes their brand. I have to tell their story to the media and help them tell their story to the media. They don't have to be good at that. That's not what they should be good at. They should be good at the creative part of what they're doing. Focus on their music, focus on being their authentic selves and what they want to represent. But if I can understand who they are, what their brand is, and help tell their story in a way that makes people want to connect with them, that's what I like to do.
How has it changed now from, say 10, 15, 20 years ago in getting that process started? Because publications aren't as many as there used to be. They're different formats, different platforms. How different is it now?
You used to be able to send out a press release and you'd get, maybe a few calls or a few people responding back to you. Now it seems as though people are so overwhelmed, overrun. Their inboxes are flooded. Well, we used to fax things too. Remember the days of fax
I remember
machine?
the days of thermal fax. So yeah, I get it.
Fax machine. Well, most of them don't have that anymore, but their inbox, they're getting too many emails and there's less people in the newsroom or the magazine to read, or anyone handling the arts or entertainment or music. And so if there's not a music critic, it's trying to flag somebody down to get their attention to understand, okay, we either have a show or a new CD out or a new EP or album or single. And so it's just my job to kind of chase them down to hear the story, hear what I'm having to pitch. So used to be able to pitch it and there was someone receiving it. Now it's just trying to track people down to make sure they're receiving the pitch.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about, among many other things, who those people are that you pitch to. Of course, it's different with every act, but with every client. We'll dig a little deeper and figure out where to go. So, in the studio with us today, Nashville, Tennessee, Elizabeth Motley with Motley Media PR. And you're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music.
Hi, this is Brian Nutter with Nutter Guitars, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hi, this is Vinny Rebus, the founder of Indie Connect. Our goal is to ensure that you have the knowledge, the tools, skills, resources, and connections that you need to develop a profitable and long-lasting career in music. One way we do this is through these Business Side of Music podcasts. I'd also like to invite you to check out Indie Connect magazine, our free multimedia online publication packed with practical interviews and advice from music industry experts. Go to www.indieconnectmag. That's www.indieconnectmag.com. Let us walk with you and guide you every step of your musical journey.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hey, we're back in the studio with Elizabeth Motley with Motley Media PR, talking about the landscape today of public relations, press, media, especially for the independent artists, because really that's kind of our focus anyway, is on that artist that's not signed to a major label. Let's talk about that for a minute. From your perspective, are the record labels, do they still have those big public relations teams in place like they used to, or is a lot of that being outsourced now? Or
They have a PR team, but it's very small. And usually they're at a point where they're just promoting the finished product. So if there's a new album out, they'll go to work, they'll go to town, if it's a big artist. And generally it's a big established artist, and they beat the drums and get a lot of the market by market press, but also the big national press that goes along with that, targeting radio, TV, magazines. But as far as their day-to-day or their tour press, still an artist needs to have their own team helping them with that, to sell tickets, to get people in the seats.
yeah, so that brings the next question up. You're a new act, young act out there touring, and you're trying to get press. It's really kind of city by city.
Right.
How far out does someone such as yourself work? Because you're reaching a smaller platform we got a lot more people listening to things digitally, but those platforms have kind of shrunk. We don't have, as we said earlier, we don't have all the newspapers that we used to and magazines. How far ahead of the curve do you need to get? Because, honestly, I just got an email today to listen to a band tonight, and, we've already got a couple other commitments we're going to try and get to.
Yeah.
I'd love to go see them. I absolutely would. But you need a little more ahead time.
Yeah, you need more lead time than that. I generally like to be 2 months out, 2 months, 6 weeks, and keep following up from there. I was doing tour press for a lot of different artists. I was working with a big marketing firm in town, helping them with some of their big established artists, and they just needed someone to focus on the advanced tour stuff, which is great because, that's one of my strengths. I would just jump in there, and ideally the dates we could work 2 months or 6 weeks out or even a month out were the strongest. Then it was just a follow-up. If you haven't heard anything the next week, a phone call, an email, follow up another phone call, another email. And we reach out to newspapers, some of the neighborhood publications, some of the music magazines in town. The nice part is, having been in television, there's a lot of these local shows, depending on the size of the market, but a lot of these local shows that they have live music, their lifestyle. They like to be in tune with the market to say, they're having a big jazz festival at the such and such club, and book one of the performers on like a local talk show. They love stuff like that, especially if there's a good story to tell. I had one client who, he had been homeless, and I got him on some TV shows in the Atlanta market because he had some bookings in the Atlanta area, and that was really strong for him. He had a good story, and he performed live, so it was all good stuff.
A homeless musician, go figure.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of them.
Yeah. So that's a question that comes up. So local television, because everybody, of course, wants to be on the Today Show or Fox and Friends or Good Morning America, any of those. But local television, especially in the morning, is not a bad thing.
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, when I worked with the Nelsons, that made the difference of whether or not they sold out a show. If I got them on the local TV show, they pretty much sold out their gig. If it was close or halfway, that pushed them over the line according to their manager at the time. So that was a big get. It depends on the artist, but yeah, you reach a big audience with TV, and they also have gotten better at digitally. They'll slice up the segments within the show, so they'll put performances online on their YouTube channel, on their Facebook page. So the word's getting out there, not just on broadcast TV, but you'll see it, on the web as well.
An artist calls you, wants you to represent them. They need to do their homework first, though. They need to be prepared. They need to be able to provide you the right tools.
If they have,
it's not just, here's our CD, now do something for us.
Oh, no.
They've got to be able to, you need more materials to work with.
Yeah, we have to know their story. We have to get all their assets. And by that, I mean MP3s of the songs or any clips that we can release to the media. We have to photos,
live footage maybe of them performing.
If they have live footage performing, it's always great. But photos are a big piece of it. If I'm sending out a pitch, I want to send a picture of the artist or the group, and along with maybe a sample of their music so they can hear what they sound like. If they have some live footage, that's even better, because then they can get a taste of what they're like. And if they don't have a bio, every artist needs a bio, hands down. So even if you don't have a publicist, you're going to need a bio, because even if you're pitching yourself out to local media, they'll say, okay, send us your bio over. You got to have a biography that's written, and you might want to get a professional publicist to help you write that. And that's the kind of stuff that I offer to my clients, is if they don't have a bio, I'll write one for them.
And a bio doesn't necessarily need to be a novel, 4 or 5 pages long. Just needs to be pretty succinct and timely.
Yeah, I mean, 1 page, 1 to 2 page, depending on how much backstory they have, to make it interesting.
And that's a lot of it, is the backstory in itself.
Yeah. And who they are, where they're going, how they're connecting, what they're looking to accomplish with their music or their songwriting.
And I think that's a key component right there. They need to know what it is they want to accomplish before someone such as yourself can set foot and do anything.
Well, it's interesting because I've had initial conversations with artists before that were just starting out. They had great pictures. They had professionally produced music and videos that were just, they look like Fellini. And yet when I sat down to ask basic questions, they hadn't thought about stuff. And it was surprising to me. I'm like, how can you be this far into it and not really know what you're going for or what you're all about?
What your goals are.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. I think it's important that, especially in these days with the independent artist who doesn't have that big machine behind them, and I don't mean the record company, but I mean the record company. You don't have the big machine in place. You've got to do a lot of your homework, and you can't rely just entirely on Facebook and Twitter.
That's true, because TV producers or editors of music magazines aren't necessarily looking at your Twitter account. They'll go back to it. If I book an interview with a client, they'll go back and look at it. I booked the Nelsons a Rolling Stone interview a few years ago, and this was 20 years since they had been in Rolling Stone, and they were excited about it. And the editor, Joe Hudak, said to me, he said, well, part of the reason I wanted to do the interview was I love their Twitter feed. And
really? Okay.
Yeah, so he'd been paying attention, but again, they were already an established, multi-platinum rock group. So
yeah, the norm is that you need to have a lot of toes in a lot of different waters,
yes,
so to speak. Especially as a new act, trying to not only discover yourself, but have fans discover you, but that's also part of that component you need for press.
The other thing I work with them is portraying themselves on camera or over the phone for an interview to be their best selves, because they don't want to answer a question, yes, no. They want to get into it and show their personality.
Be engaging.
Yes,
Yeah.
being engaging. So I help people. I've done media coaching for artists, executives. I help people with those skills. Having been a news anchor, having been a producer, working with talent,
Right.
I'm very good at helping people to be their best selves.
And I think that's something else that I want to dig in a little more when we come back from the break, is being your best self, because in most cases you only get one impression. And
That's
it really
true.
is that first impression.
Yes.
Well, good. We're going to talk about that some more. In the studio with us today, Elizabeth Motley, Motley Media PR here in Nashville, Tennessee. And you're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music.
Hi, this is Alex Heike, and you are listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Wow, I just joined the Music Starts Here community. This is a truly hidden gem for anyone in the music business. Whether you live in Nashville or anywhere else in the world, Music Starts Here is like a GPS for your music career. This is the place to be if you want to get advice and direction from some seriously talented musical people who have been where you want to go. Music news, events, and a great big community with resources for artists, songwriters, musicians, studio and tech, along with music business advice from pros in the industry, all on one site. Make sure you get your free profile now. Go to www.musicstartshere.org. That's musicstartshere.org.
You're listening to the business side of music.
We're back in the studio with Elizabeth Motley from Motley Media PR here in Nashville, Tennessee. You've worked with some names, James Best, who played Rosco P. Coltrane
Yes.
on Dukes of Hazzard, and of course then the Nelson twins, Matthew and Gunnar. Absolutely love those guys. You've kind of been in the deep end of the pool when it comes to television,
Yes.
and media, but that's really not where most of us work anymore. I mean, we're all kind of working as independents. We're out there. We're just really trying, so many independent artists are trying to carve a name for themselves and just get some kind of a foothold. And part of that is what we talked about before the break, is that first impression, making that, because that's really got to be the best impression you can make.
It's everything.
Because otherwise it just goes downhill from there.
Yes.
And in some cases it goes downhill from there anyway.
Yes. First impression. And you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. You want to be your best self. You want to be ready. When you get that opportunity, you just want to be ready. That's why artists rehearse. They rehearse like crazy.
It's a valid point you made up. They get in the studio and they woodshed, as I like to call it. They rehearse and they make sure they got the music down. But a lot of times they don't think about the choreography on stage, how it's going to look.
Right.
Even more importantly, they don't know how to act in front of the camera or in this case, a podcast or a radio station, they don't know really how to behave in front of a microphone. It is a talent.
It's a skill. It's definitely a skill to learn. Someone like some of the celebrity artists, they've been in front of the camera since they were toddlers, so they have no problem with that. But some of the newer ones, it's just new. It's getting comfortable and learning to be yourself and not be too caught up in being nervous or not being yourself. And I'll do drills with clients, either on the phone. Some of them, I'll put the camera on them and we'll rehearse. And it's not so much for them to rehearse their answers. I'm just trying to get them comfortable in front of the lights and in front of the camera and used to time limitations. Okay, it's a 4-minute interview, so I'm going to get used to seeing what
don't dwell on.
Right.
Keep it fresh.
Short, succinct, keep it moving, keep it interesting, have fun. I always tell my clients to have fun. It's music, it's entertainment. So enjoy yourself and have a good time, and the audience will find you engaging.
Yeah. With regards to social media, we're hearing a lot these days. Facebook isn't what it used to be. It's been losing some of its audience. It's more of an older demographic now than it used to be. It started out, it was college and teens, and now it's almost more my generation, maybe a little younger. What is that next platform out there from a social media standpoint? Where do you market yourself?
I think what I'm seeing the most is Instagram, but even more than Instagram is YouTube. And YouTube, people sort of first discovered it and then they sort of left it alone, or they just throw things up and there's no strategy to it. Now YouTube and Spotify are sort of going head to head. People are doing playlists. A lot of artists, even if they don't have a professional music video, they're doing covers, they're doing audio versions of their songs that get put into a playlist like a Spotify. And it's helping artists get that leverage, get that coverage. If someone big picks up your song in their playlist, you're going to get a lot more subscribers. So I feel like YouTube is really the thing that you can do videos on your phone. It's not that hard.
So what you're saying is you don't have to have a $250,000 budget to shoot something.
No.
But it has to be something that's compelling and tells a story and keeps your attention for more than 3 seconds.
You look at artists like Dan and Shay, and you look at their YouTube platform, and there's a whole strategy to what they're doing. And they had that hit song Tequila, but there's about 10 versions of Tequila on their YouTube page. And that keeps getting picked up by everyone and doing playlists, and other artists are doing covers of it. But it's getting the subscribers and building up your YouTube platform that's, I would suggest to most of my clients.
Is there an easy formula to it? Or, I mean, we use the comment a lot of, what we used to call hat acts here in Nashville, or the cookie cutter template. Or is it something you just really kind of need to discover on your own of what works versus what doesn't work?
I think a little bit of both. You have to find what's working, but you have to be diligent in putting content on there on a regular basis. And some artists are really afraid of I don't think I look so good in that clip from my last show. Don't be afraid to put things up there. Some of the biggest artists that have broke out on YouTube have been young adults who are in their bedroom with hardly any makeup on, and they're not worried about the professional aspect of it, but people related to what they were performing and what they were doing.
Right.
Don't be too vain and too worried about it not being polished enough, but make sure that it sounds good and it portrays your music the way you want it to, but be diligent about putting up content on a regular basis. And the metadata is very important. The hashtags, you got to make sure that the metadata is there on everything that you post, and just be consistent with that.
That's a key component then.
Yes.
What is the future of public relations? Where do you see it going?
It's interesting. I kind of feel like it's starting to evolve into meshing more with marketing. And marketing seems to be meshing more with social media. And so I'm seeing a lot of these areas starting to intertwine. I feel I don't have a big firm. I have a very small boutique agency, but if someone hires me, they get me.
Right.
I'm sort of like a Jerry Maguire of, fewer clients,
Yeah.
more
More
access,
personal touch, yeah.
more personal attention. Some of the bigger firms, they can provide more services and maybe have a team, and they might have, here's our social media expert, and here's our person that does promotion over here. And that's fine, but I do see that those are starting to intertwine a lot more. I've handled social media accounts for some of my artists for a long time, so I have no problem doing that, but whether or not I can do that full time as well as do their PR is a different thing.
Do you think the artist of tomorrow, they're still going to need some type of public relations behind them though, right?
Oh, definitely. It's never going to go away. People want to get their name. They want to get the buzz out. It's the repetition. It's just, like I said, it's sort of the building block of getting it out there. You did an interview here for a newspaper. Let's get that magazine one. Let's build on that. Let's get you on local TV. Here's a regional TV show that can help you build into getting a national spot. It all builds your audience and gets the word out, and then people start saying, I've heard of that artist.
You're creating that buzz.
Yes, creating it.
Yeah, good. How can people find you?
I do have a website at elizabethmotley.com, or feel free to reach out to me at lizmotley@me.com.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. Co-producer for the show is Vinny Rivas. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Los Angeles, California and Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.